Yes, looks good.
All right, good. So before I get into the I-270 Innovative Congestion Management Progressive Design Build presentation, just want to give a quick overview of Maryland Department of Transportation's State Highway Administration's Alternative Delivery Program. So we've been doing design build since 1998. We started out doing, generally speaking, low price, low bid jobs. We did 2005, we did our first best value. So we started dipping our toe in the water on that. And the next year we did another best value in our first job with Alternative Technical Concepts. I'd say from 2007 to 2012, we really kind of evolved away from low price to being maybe not the majority of what we do, but the lesser of what we do, to more best value, the majority of best value selections by 2012. And we went from ATCs being on a handpicked number of jobs to being on every job that we did, whether it was low price or best value. So we really kind of morphed over time and evolved. We also did some tweaks to the way we scored or rated proposals. We went from using numbers, being a numbers-based selection, to using adjectival ratings for the technical and a trade-off for determining the selection. So we evolved in our design build program, and when I say design build, I'm talking about fixed price design build. In about 2012, we started dipping our toe in CMGC. So we actually did our first project in 2013. It was a very small pilot project, but it was very successful. It was a slope remediation that toiled around for many years trying to come up with a good solution to build it, and we felt that it worked really well. For us, CMGC, we procured probably another 3 projects since then with, I'll use the term, mixed results. We actually had to exercise the off-ramp on one because we could not get to a agreed upon price. We've also got one that's in an early work package now in construction, trying to negotiate the final price, reconcile the final price for final construction, and are in pre-construction in the other one. So that's been since the last 7 years. So we've done multiple CMGCs. Since then, we also started in 2015. We did the procurement for our first, 2016, our first progressive design build, which is the I-270 Innovative Congestion Management contract. So just what I want to go over real quick is to just give you an understanding of the I-270 corridor with some facts, talk about the vision of the I-270 ICM and the procurement process we went through, talk about the winning proposal a little bit, and just kind of go through the final design and construction process that we've seen. So this is actually still in the construction phase. We expect it to be done either late this year or sometime next year. So it's been in construction since fall of 2017, so a little over 2 years at this point. So just to give you an idea of I-270, it's one of the most congested corridors in the National Capital Region. It's just outside of DC. It runs north-south from Frederick, where it's about a 4-lane highway. And then as it goes further south, it widens to 6, 8, and ultimately 12 lanes, where it will then tie into the Capital Beltway, which is the circumferential route around Washington, DC, and Maryland and Virginia. This area has strong economic development and housing growth projected. I mean, even in the region itself, in the next 20 plus years, we're looking at another 1.2 million residents in the National Capital Region and another million jobs or so. So this is a corridor that's slated to continue to grow in the future. And it's already well over capacity. We have certain sections in the north start at 80 to 100,000 vehicles. And as you go further south, you get up to 260,000 vehicles in sections, and you've got congestion up to 10 hours a day. Like I said, it's a strong directional peak. So southbound going to Washington, DC in the morning, and northbound going away from DC back toward Frederick. Southbound in the morning is the most significant congestion. It takes almost 70 minutes to go the nearly 35 miles from Frederick down to Capital Beltway. It's a little less in the evening, about 44 minutes to go northbound. And part of that is due to the significant congestion on the Capital Beltway, which artificially meters traffic even getting on 270. So we do have serious congestion in this corridor, which we've been trying to address for many decades. And unfortunately, the solutions were always multi-billion-dollar solutions of adding two or three lanes in each direction. So but the citizens wanted a solution, and they wanted it now, at least something in the near term that could address the congestion, while we looked for really the long-term vision for the corridor. And that's really what the I-270 ICM was to put in short-term solutions now while we work on addressing the future vision of the corridor. So the overall vision was we wanted to move the most traffic the furthest and fastest we could through the corridor. But we wanted to do that in a manner that was safe, but also minimize future operations and maintenance costs, and would also adapt to future technologies as they became available. So we had no scope defined here. It was a very open, flexible scope that we did through the procurement process. We did not have any predetermined solutions or requirements other than we said we have $100 million as a fixed budget for this. So we wanted to know what could be delivered for that $100 million. So major risks with the vision, like I kind of went into, we'd done fixed price design build, we'd done CMGC, but we really did not see how either of those methods would fit what we were trying to accomplish here. I mean, there were risks. We had no environmental document done. Since we had no scope, we couldn't do that. And since we were really looking at the procurement process to help scope definition, we really couldn't even start an environmental document until we had the contractor on board. And we saw that as a very unpredictable time frame to both begin and end construction. And we're talking about a 35-mile corridor too, and really looking at $100 million. We know we can't work everywhere in that corridor. We needed to pick and choose where to work, but we didn't want to define where to work. So how would we gather data to allow contractors or design builders to prepare fixed price proposals? We didn't see that being possible. And we thought it also be a very time-consuming process to define potential requirements for potential solutions. And right-of-way impacts would be unknown at the time of our procurement, which could lead to extended construction completion. And also we felt that while we'd had success with CMGC, we felt that CMGC could have reduced innovation and collaboration with separate design and construction contracts. Because one thing we've seen with CMGC is the contractor and the designer aren't always a cohesive team, because they were chosen separately and they were trying to form a team as opposed to picking a team that's already been formed and they work together better. So we thought there were risks with the vision of using our typical project delivery methods we've been using. And that really is what led us to progressive design build for this contract. We thought advantages would be, well, we could introduce that design builder into the project at the earliest possible to be a strategic partner in defining the scope of the project. We thought it could provide an overall shorter time frame and lesser costs from the initiation of the project to having that design builder on board, because we wouldn't spend an exorbitant amount of time gathering data, developing concepts, and quote unquote bridging documents. We also like the idea of having collaboration and involvement in the design as it's developed, because we believe that we'd get solutions we'd never use in Maryland. We've never used in Maryland. And we want to be at the table when developing those solutions to ensure that we were getting what we wanted and also setting a course for the future if we ever wanted to use these solutions in other congested corridors in the state. And we like the fact we'd have access to real-time information to promote informed decision-making, and that's both in pricing and in solutions. And we felt we had the same typical benefits we get from design build and innovation, but different from CMGC, we had one contract. So we didn't have to procure that designer and manage that designer separately from the contractor. We thought it could have a slight schedule benefit in delivering, but we still have the ability to exercise that off-ramp you have in CMGC if you cannot, for some reason, come to a price. So how we procured this contract, I won't say we didn't veer too far from our traditional way of procuring design build. When we do CMGC, we do a one-step best value procurement. And that one step, it consists of a technical proposal with qualifications, approach, and certain pricing elements such as pre-construction price, profit, and construction management fee. So we use a two-step best value here, like we do for design build. Under our regulations, we can do that under what we call competitive seal proposals. And this was a best value selection or most advantageous to the state. We use a two-phase process, with phase one being the request for qualifications, just like we would on a fixed price design build, with phase two being that request for proposals with the technical proposal and price proposal. Statement of qualifications, what we evaluated, we looked at not very much different than what we would do in a typical fixed price design build. We were looking for that key staff's experience, qualifications, and past performance. So the key staff we defined, we wanted to make sure we were getting the right people. We also wanted to look at their overall team's ability and our experience in delivering similar solutions across the world. So that really their past performance as a team, and then also their understanding of this contract and their progressive design build approach. So we wanted to make sure they were aligned with us and understanding what we were trying to accomplish and understanding what the actual progressive design build process was. We then moved on, once we shortlisted proposers, to request for proposals. And through that, we had one-on-one meetings. We didn't use alternative technical concepts because we had no solutions. So we actually just coined the phrase proposed technical concepts, similar to the ATC process, but it had some slight variations. Then we also had the technical proposal, price proposal, and we did have stipends for unsuccessful proposers like we would on a fixed price design build job. So one-on-one meetings, these were obviously confidential. We held 3 scheduled rounds of these with each proposer. Really wanted to encourage collaboration and bilateral communication, but we did have the agenda set by the proposer since it was their meeting. And they generally could ask questions and clarifications related to the RFP if they wanted to do that in a confidential environment instead of doing typical requests for clarifications. They could identify concerns and conflicts they may have had in the RFP. And this, really the most important things we wanted them to do was to discuss potential solutions to address our contract goals, and also present any potential conceptual proposed technical concepts that they might want to kind of shoot past our bow to get some feedback on before they spent time, money, and effort in developing those proposed technical concepts. So PTCs, or proposed technical concepts, were also confidential, just like alternative technical concepts. We saw this as a way to allow proposers to seek feedback on their potential solutions before they submitted them formally in a technical proposal. So we did not, like an ATC, accept or approve or conditionally approve these proposed technical concepts. We focused on providing feedback related to what we saw as the potential implementation of these concepts. So things like potential issues that may have to be overcome or may need to be thought about to implement these concepts, and also how they're compatible with achieving the goals of the contract. I mean, one example, just very simplistically, is, a proposer said, could we use 11-foot lanes? And we didn't tell them yes or no. We told them, well, these are the things you've got to evaluate and demonstrate to us, and narrowing the lanes from 12 foot to 11 foot, and the things that are needed to get a design exception. So we tried to lay out what they needed to think through and evaluate so they could then determine if it was a good solution or not to present to us in their technical proposal. So their technical proposal was really their solutions to address our goals, and I'll kind of go over our goals right here. So mobility was the number one goal. Okay, I just lost my screen here. I just lost my presentation screen. I'm not sure why. I'm sorry.
I see. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it just disappeared for me.
Okay. We see it on our side.
All right. Well, I can't see it. Let me figure out why. There it is. Got it back. Get it. All right. So design builder solutions to address and advance the goals. First was mobility. We were looking to move people through the corridor, so we wanted to maximize that vehicle throughput, minimize travel times, and provide a more predictable commuter trip. But we needed to do that in a safe manner. So we wanted to make sure they were considering safety in their solution, so we can ensure people can drive safe and not have that non-recurring congestion you see from crashes. Obviously, we wanted to make sure that this could be adaptable to the future, something that we can maintain as well. We didn't want to invest a whole lot of dollars into a corridor that could be impacted in the future, since we were looking at this as short-term solutions. So we wanted to make sure that it would be adaptable as the future goes on, and also a well-managed project or contract. So a team that was going to communicate, coordinate, manage risk, and be collaborative with us in developing solutions. So they also submitted price proposals at the time. Price proposals were somewhat similar to what we do on CMGC. As we said, this was a $100 million fixed value contract. So that was I'll use the term, the target maximum price we were seeking for everything. So they had to give us a fixed number for design and pre-construction services. They would also give us a price for construction management fee that they would apply to the actual construction. And then the remainder was the $100 million minus those 2 items. So that construction services fee set the value of the negotiations for the actual construction work that was going to be delivered. And we evaluated the price at the time really for reasonableness and make sure it wasn't unbalanced. I mean, for example, if somebody put $15 million in the design pre-construction item, we would see that as unbalanced and not reasonable. So we wanted to make sure that people weren't trying to front load that item or the construction management fee for that matter. And I mentioned we did get stipends to the unsuccessful proposers. Typically, we give about 0.2 to 0.25% of the construction value as a stipend. Here we went 3 times that 0.25% or $750,000 because we saw a whole lot of work that had to go into developing those proposals since they didn't have typical bridging documents, and we were really looking at them to do a lot of upfront work to help define the scope and so we could select the right partner. We provided those unsuccessful proposers or any proposer who might have had a proposed technical concept we may want to carry forward with a stipend, as long as they agreed that we own the ideas in exchange for those stipends. So evaluation and selection, we really followed similar structure that we do for any CMGC or design build evaluation. We did use an adjectival rating process as we do, which was exceptional, good, and unacceptable. Exceptional, good, acceptable, and unacceptable. And we do have pluses or minuses we can assign in between that. So we don't use numbers. We use adjectival ratings. We also weighted the evaluation factors as critical, significant, or important, with mobility being, I think it was critical, and safety, operations and maintenance, and well-managed project, I believe, are all important. And we said the technical was substantially more important than the price. So we followed our typical process where we have separate teams evaluate each individual evaluation factor. Then an evaluation committee is formed with the leaders of those teams to review all those evaluation factors and the ratings, and then come up with the final ratings, which is then presented to our selection committee, which is usually shared by our administrator and or deputy administrators. So we follow that typical process we do for CMGC and design build, and we use that to select the progressive design builder for the contract. So that was really the process we followed in getting the progressive design build team on board. Now I just want to talk a little bit about the winning proposal that we received. I will say we did receive a lot of similar ideas in the proposal, whether they be hard shoulder running, ramp metering, other civil improvements, but really what we saw the difference was how each team and where each team applied those solutions to really optimize the corridor. So that was the big difference we saw. We didn't really see the same proposal over and over again, but we saw the same ideas just applied differently. The team that won took a solution where they wanted to maximize benefit costs and look at the low cost and high benefit improvements, such as ramp metering they found was a high benefit and a low cost, and kind of minimize configuration changes to lanes to make things move more efficiently. Also providing capacity and operational benefits, so providing new lanes where they could by narrowing lanes and shoulders. Also looked at permanent solutions versus temporary solutions. So for example, providing full-time capacity through narrow lanes and shoulders as opposed to using hard shoulder running. They did look to provide improvements throughout the entire limits of the corridor where they could, and there's a map over there on the right of the screen, which kind of, they had a two-pronged approach here. They had capacity improvements to add lanes through narrowing lane shoulders and restriping in the bottleneck areas that they identified as the real capacity constraints in the corridor, and then using technology such as ramp metering and active traffic management to help optimize the corridor and move traffic more importantly. Ultimately, they were looking for sustainable benefits throughout the corridor and something that would improve traffic today, but also have a long-lasting effect in the corridor. So final design and construction. So like I said, this was a fixed value contract, $100 million. And when it was awarded, we issued the notice to proceed, which was just for the design and pre-construction services. So that is all the design build team was guaranteed to receive, was whatever design and pre-construction services they provided. They were not guaranteed construction. We issued separate notice to proceed for construction for any of the improvements that they advanced to a what we called a construction agreed price, or CAP. So the caps could not exceed, the caps along with the pre-construction services could not exceed the overall contract value, and the design builder and us as the owner had to ensure we were managing the amount of improvements within the budget. And there were multiple caps being delivered for standalone construction projects. So, and you can see there's about 14, I think, civil improvements they proposed, and I believe the ramp metering throughout the corridor, and also active traffic management, such as dynamic speed signing and dynamic messaging. So throughout the development of the job, we've done some modifications to that. For example, we decided to eliminate the active traffic management because the variable speed signs and the Q warning signs were going to be in the median between the CD roads and the general purpose lanes, which is actually going to be impacted for our future long-term project in the corridor to provide managed lanes. So we thought that it was not a good investment, and we reduced the scope of the contract by taking that out, but we did recycle some of that money back into the contract by providing additional ramp meters throughout the corridor that we felt would help in the long term. So just want to talk a little bit about, before I get into some specific little improvements that were made. At this point, we've got about 6 of the civil improvements complete and open to traffic. 3 are under construction. 4 are ready for construction, so we're finalizing the pricing right now. And then there's 1 that's been somewhat held up because of some political issues and disagreements with the local jurisdiction. So that one may not get advanced. So we're still trying to work through that. So we've seen the process work and get things into construction. We actually started this on May of 2017 is when we issued notice to proceed. And the very first improvement was known as SB or Southbound 10. We actually got that into construction within 4 months. It was a very simple improvement where the west spur of 270 tied into 495 or the Capitol Beltway. It was 6 lanes coming together and dropping down to 5. And the inside lane on 270 was the lane that dropped. However, the traffic volumes didn't support that. The Capitol Beltway, even though it was the main roadway, actually had about 40% of the traffic, whereas 270 had 60% of the traffic. So this improvement was just kind of flip the lane drop from the inside 270 lane to the outside Capitol Beltway lane. And really what we saw from this upon implementation, it's been in operation for over 2 years, but here's a 2-year comparison, is we've seen a whole lot less peak hour spreading. We've improved speeds approaching 495 and reduced queue lengths. You can see we've taken a lot of the red out of our traffic throughout the morning and improved it. So we've seen for this minimal improvement, we've seen a lot of benefit from it. The next one was Southbound 1, which was up north toward Frederick. And this was a very straightforward project. It was expanding or extending acceleration and deceleration lanes at the Maryland 80 interchange, and it's been successful. We've seen higher speeds at Maryland 80, less peak hour spreading, and downstream we've seen better speeds at Maryland 109. So we've seen this as a successful improvement as well from an implementation point. 5A, Southbound 5A has also been implemented. It's one of the things we've seen from this one is the before and let me explain what this improvement was. This was taking an existing 1-lane exit to I-370, which then opened up to 2 lanes. That 1 lane would back up and queue up onto the main line, blocking traffic. So the thought was to construct the outside lane on 270, make it a choice lane. So you'd have 2 potential lanes to exit to hopefully reduce that queuing. So we haven't seen a lot of improvement, if any improvement from this. It's very comparable. But we also believe here is, the whole analysis of this was done originally based off of a program of improvements all being implemented. So while some of these improvements as standalone projects have shown improvements, we feel that the entire program improvements, once it's in place, is what's really going to optimize the corridor and move traffic throughout the area. So just a quick before and after here. This was the existing on the left of what things looked like in 2015 with traffic. You can see significant congestion, especially in the southern portion of 270 with the red and the orange. Existing condition, if we overlay the program improvements, is to the right. You can see significant improvement, very little red, some orange, and a lot of green. So thus far, we've seen from what we've monitored that these are working. We're very excited to get the final improvements constructed this year or early next year and the whole system open to traffic. I will say the ramp metering is nearing ready for operation, although we're having some issues with COVID and significantly reduced traffic volumes, being able to calibrate the software and get those meters up and running. But certainly we feel that this has been a very successful project, and we do think the approach of using progressive design build was the right approach for this project. So before I take questions, I just want to make one note. If anybody has any interest in seeing any of the RFQ, RFP any of the proposals from this, they are on our design build website here. There's a link to that. And any of our other recent design build projects are on there as well. And on our website, we also have our CMGC, RFPs, and proposals as well. So I'd invite anyone who's interested in taking a look at that to feel free to check it out. And my contact information is there as well. If you ever wanted to reach out to me, I'd be more than happy to try to help out or put you in touch with the right person. So thank you for allowing me to participate today.